So what is your professional and artistic background? I know you're a photographer.
Yeah, I was a photographer for about 27 years, doing mostly freelance work. I was an artist in residence for a couple of different community colleges. The North Carolina Arts Council used to have a program called the Visiting Artist Program, and it funded an artist in every county throughout the state. So there 100 artists had jobs with the Visiting Artist Program, and I was one of them for 4 years. It gave me the freedom to really develop my craft and my ability to photograph. And I was assigned to a community college in Halifax County near Roanoke Rapids up in northeastern North Carolina for a couple of years. And then I was a visiting artist at the Durham Technical Institute in Durham. And that's how I got to know Durham, and then decided to keep living there after that job. I would say I'm a documentary photographer. I'm not so interested personally in making photographs that are trying to be paintings or trying to be art objects. It's for me, it's mostly a form of telling a story. And there wasn't a grand plan. There was never, here's what I'm going to do. I just did whatever I felt like doing as I went along. But looking back, at some point, somebody said, well, why do you photograph the kinds of things you do? And I looked at the things that I'd photographed, and it was mostly, I had spent time with Australian Aboriginals, Inuits, South Carolina Sea Islanders, Navajos. With the Navajos, it was 7 years that I photographed them and got to know them pretty well. And then the other thing I've concentrated on was self-taught artists or outsider artists. I was thinking, in trying to answer that question, why did I end up photographing those two topics? And I realized that I had grown up as a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force, and we moved constantly when I was growing up. We'd moved over 15 times before I went to college. And that had a big effect on me. I mean, I wouldn't say it was a negative effect. It just had an effect. It's like growing up in the circus or something like that. You just think, well, this is life. This is my life. And this is how it's set up. Or this is the deal. So, I just went along with it, and it was fine. I didn't feel, in other words, I didn't grow up feeling traumatized. It felt like a natural way to live to me because that's all I knew. But in thinking back about it, I did think, well, okay, the two things that I'm interested mostly are in people who have felt some kind of disconnection and then have found a way to overcome it by art, and people who seem completely rooted in their place. And I saw that suddenly as like two sides of the same coin. One was people who I could identify with, that I felt a connection with these self-taught artists because they almost all had something an issue they were trying to deal with through their art, and then doing it made them overcome whatever the situation was. But there was almost always a period of time where they felt disconnected from their communities. And it's often due to some sort of trauma that usually sets off that kind of art making. Mm-hmm. So there were this group of people that I identified with, and then there were the people who had what I wanted subconsciously, that I wanted to feel rooted somewhere. So I was really attracted to situations where people seemed almost like part of the landscape. One was how I felt, and the other was what I wanted, and they were both things that I tried to answer through the photography that I did by photographing them and then trying to tell their stories. So that's what I did.